Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Marketing and Leadership Series with Kevin and Craig, where we add value to people's lives, happening every Thursday on ebritzradio.com. You can catch the Lunchtime Series on all major podcast channels, and joining me as per usual, marketing and communications expert and co-host Craig Page Lee. How are you doing?
Well, Kevin, yeah, great. I'm sure you're having an awesome time on your holidays and travels, and I hear that you're in Amsterdam, the city of great beers.
Yes, we are in Amsterdam. It's we actually may be on King's Day, where they celebrate the King's birthday. It's also referred to their day, so everyone is out on town, out and about. The whole city comes. Most of the trams don't work, so you've got to be very specific where you land up and where you will walk. Or hire a bicycle. That's the only two options you really have. But yeah, it's a lot of drinking, and people are literally just they're putting music outside their apartments and just blasting it into the. it's quite insane.
That's
so
fantastic.
Much fun. It was fantastic.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely loving it. Great. So picking up on last week's conversation, I wonder how they create the customer lifetime value of each tour and visitor passing through the city on a daily basis. That would be like a really interesting thing.
Yeah, Kevin, just imagine the size and the power of the database required to actually determine that fact. Merging years of tracking visitors' personas, travel, shopping, and consumption behavior to determine real customer lifetime value of a visitor to Amsterdam would be an amazing exercise. But yeah, back to the question at hand. The key reminder points from last week's conversation are from the article titled "Why is Customer Lifetime Value Important to Business and Why Does It Matter?" It was published on netsuite.com. So a few of the key reasons for brands and companies to track and use customer lifetime value were noted in the article, and I'll pick up on a few of that. So firstly, you can't improve what you don't measure. Once you start measuring your customer lifetime value and breaking down the various components, you can really employ specific strategies around pricing, sales, advertising, and then obviously customer retention, with the goal of continuously reducing costs and increasing profit across the experience. Make better decisions on customer acquisition costs. So when you know what you will earn from a typical customer, you can therefore increase or decrease the spending to ensure that you maximize the profitability of that customer and that you actually continue to attract the right customer segments to the proposition. The third point there is improved forecasting. So customer lifetime value forecasts help you make forward-looking decisions around your inventory, around your staffing, around your production capacity, and other associated costs. And without that forecast, you could unknowingly overspend or waste money or underspend and lose out and put yourself in a difficult situation when trying to keep up with demand. A few of the key advantages, however, of customer lifetime value, as noted in the article, are the following: improved customer retention. And one of the biggest factors in addressing customer lifetime value is actually improving customer retention and avoiding customer attrition. That goes for any brand. Tracking these details with acute segmentation can help you identify your best customers and obviously establish what's working well in that regard. Point two is to drive repeat sales. So some of the retailers, tech companies, retail chains, and other businesses have loyalty programs. We've covered that in extreme detail. You can use that to really look back and see what it is that attracted the customers, and you can then establish your customer lifetime value to track the average number of visits per year over the customer lifetime, and then use that data to strategize ways to increase your repeat business. The third point there is encourage high value sales, key focus area. Netflix is an example of a business that improved their customer lifetime value through the higher pricing, but learned years ago that improving costs too quickly may actually scare off long-time customers. And as we mentioned last week, trying to get the balance right here is important because they now find themselves in a situation where they're needing to bring in a lower price brackets as well. And the last point there is increased profitability. Overall, the higher customer lifetime value should lead to bigger profits. And by keeping your customers longer and building a business that encourages them to spend more, you obviously should see the benefits show to the bottom line. And yeah, those are the reminder points from last week's conversation, Kevin.
Thanks, Greg. So, I mean, you also mentioned that today's discussion, we will be discussing key trends and insights today. So, so what is it that we are going to be discussing or sharing with the listeners?
Yeah, Kevin, definitely key insights and trends. We're going to take a look at some of the important statistics relating to a few of the most important social media platforms in use these days. And there's a lot of talk and activity out there around social media platforms, including the likes of, the news around Elon Musk's offer to buy Twitter, which has apparently been accepted by the board. So let's see how that plays out. But I thought it appropriate to shed some light on the top 3 social media platforms that most of us in the business world engage with on a regular basis. And the key objective here is just to provide insights into the size of these platforms, and then just to gain an understanding of the trends and usage patterns driving these platforms, Kevin.
So, I mean, starting with Facebook, which is one of the most popular social media platforms, what can you tell us with regards to the Facebook these days?
Yeah, okay, Kevin. So there are a number of lengthy reports that address all of these key social media platforms, either individually or as a collective. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just look at individual reports relative to each of the platforms. So starting with the article titled Facebook Stats and Trends, as published on the 28th of February 2022, it was published to Data Reportal by Simon Kemp, who's the Chief Strategy and Analyst, and he's also a Kevios CEO. And we learned from that article that Facebook has 2.91 billion monthly active users in January 22, placing it first in the Data Report ranking the world's most active social media platforms. And while the article covered a range of facts and insights, I've pulled a few that I believe are important to note, with the figures all based on Kevios's analytics and data sourced directly from Facebook's own tools, resources, and company statements. So let's take a look at these stats. Firstly, how many people use Facebook today? Well, worldwide, Kevin, as I mentioned, active users noted at 2.91 billion as measured in January 2022. And Facebook's global advertising audience is noted at 2.109 billion, again, measured in Jan 2022. 66% of Facebook's active users log in daily. That's quite high. However, only 72% of the monthly active users were shown an ad on the platform in the 30 days leading to the end of January. The second point is advertising audience reach. Looking at the top 5 countries, India has at least 329.7 million active Facebook users, 5 times, just nearly 6 times the population of South Africa. The United States of America has at least 179.7 million active Facebook users. Indonesia has 129, nearly 130 million active users. Brazil has at least 116 million active users, and Mexico has nearly 90 million active users, substantially more than the total population of our country. The third point focuses on Facebook's audience demographics, and based on the advertising audience data, 43.4% of Facebook's global users are actually female, 56.6% are male. And the figures are skewed towards males, Kevin, because around the world, men are more likely than women to have access to the internet, and it's very much driven around the big digital demographics in the developing world. And the median age of, interestingly, the median age of Facebook's advertising audience is 31 years old, but quite a bit higher than I thought. The fourth point is how many people use Facebook on mobile devices. Based on the data published last year, 98.5% of Facebook's audience aged 18 plus actually access via a mobile phone, while 16% access via laptops and or desktop computers, and 81% of the audience age 18 plus only access via a mobile phone, which is quite alarming, while 1.5% only access the platform via laptops and or desk computers. The fifth point here is Facebook engagement varies by age and gender, which we've seen with so many of the topics we've covered. Typically, female users left a median of 7 comments on Facebook posts in about the middle of 2021, while male users only left 4 comments per month. Typically, female users clicked 14 ads when men only clicked 10 during the same period in June 2021. Women aged between 45 and 65 are even more likely to click a Facebook ad than men, reporting a median of 20 ad clicks per month. Young men, who accounted for the largest portion of the platform, are least likely to click on Facebook ads, which I suppose is expected. And male users aged 25 to 34, which is the single largest group in the advertising audience, they clicked on a median of just 10 ads per month. 50% of women in the 45 to 64 category. And the last point on Facebook there, Kevin, is about how often people engage with a post. So based on the numbers published in the Facebook Insights tool in June 2021, the typical global Facebook user aged 18 plus had liked a median of 11 Facebook posts in a 30-day period, left a median of 5 comments on posts in that 30-day period, reshared a medium of just one, interestingly, just one Facebook post in the previous period of the 30 days of that period, and clicked or tapped on a medium of 12 Facebook ads, including sponsored posts in the previous days. So what was interesting in that 30-day period, they're clicking on ads far more than they're actually sharing posts and commenting on posts, which I found quite interesting.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is that, I mean, they have over 2 billion users, but only 66% of the Facebook active users log in daily. So, I mean, there's a sure sort of key indicator that Facebook is really declining in a big way. Like Facebook was everyone's go-to for just about everything for a number of years.
Yes.
But now, you know, it's dwindling.
Yeah, Facebook organic usage is absolutely dwindling. There's no doubt about it, Kevin.
Especially if you're having, you know, only 60% people logging in. I mean, having 2 billion users and only 60% of that would, like, because that's, again, speaking to revenue, right? It's people are not seeing your ads, people are not clicking on ads, so you're not making money from that perspective. So that's I think that's a big knock on for Facebook itself. But now
sorry, to that point, if you don't mind, Kevin, sorry, just to that point, what would be really interesting is to see the split between actual Facebook business accounts and personal accounts, and how that is, you know, impacting on the reduction even more so, because, you know, at an organic level it's personal, but at a business level it's paid. It'd be really interesting to see what that split is.
Yeah, because also people will still turn to Facebook to use for Facebook advertising, because you can get the click-through rate. So I always think that, you know, at this point, because there's so much competition with LinkedIn, with Twitter, with TikTok, a majority of people going on Facebook now, I believe is probably a business sort of reasoning behind it. It's sort of creating a page and doing a thing, and but yeah, I mean, that would be a really interesting stat. So yeah. Being familiar with Facebook the usage trends, what can you tell us about with regarding the Twitter usage?
Yeah, Kevin, this is a space to watch, particularly in light of where Twitter could be going next. But let's look at some of the stats that stand out for Twitter leading into 2022. Referencing the article 38 latest Twitter statistics, what is the state of Twitter in 22, published to bloginwizard.com by Adam Connell, updated now recently on the 16th of July 2022, we learned the following, that Twitter is one of the biggest social media networks on the planet, and it's where the public conversation happens, where new trends start, and where people go to find out what's happening in the world. And as such, it's an indispensable tool for marketers looking to build brand awareness, connect with their customers, and uncover valuable insights. However, it hasn't yet gained the financial traction that the other social media channels have. But let's look at that. I've pulled 10 stats from the 38 referenced in the article. And these range from a reminder of scale and sizing on the one end through to usage figures and highlighting the importance of the platform again. So starting with the first point I pulled here, Twitter has 353 million total active users. That's a fragment of what Facebook is. And here it really validates the size relative to the others. It's ranked number 16 in the list of the top social media platforms by usage, Kevin. It doesn't even rank among the top 10 most social platforms. With Facebook over 2.9 billion, nearly 8 times that of Twitter. So the top 5 platforms are Facebook, as I mentioned, 2.9 billion, YouTube with over 2.2 billion users, WhatsApp with over 2 billion users, Facebook Messenger with over 1.3 billion users, and Instagram with 1.2 billion users. So you can really see there's a lot of opportunity and work to be done to grow that. The other thing here is that Facebook has 192 million monetizable daily active users. More than 50, Twitter, I should say, has 192 million monetizable daily active users. That is 10% of WhatsApp's total usage audience. So interesting. And monetizable here relates to accounts that are actually able to view advertising on the platform. And the number of monetizable users is just over half the number of the users on the platform. And a large portion of Twitter's user base actually don't contribute any ad revenue to the platform at all, Kevin, and that is from Global Impact Report. Point 3 that I pulled here is that 38% of Twitter's users are aged 25 to 34. So you can see it's got a appeal factor much higher than the younger audience, which are in the likes of TikTok and Facebook, etc. The platform is favored by millennials, where they assign global distribution by age. 20.7% are between the age of 35 to 49. So really, that's where the core audience is. But collectively, this means that the bulk of Twitter's use base is in that age between 25 and 49. That source being Statista. The fourth point that I pulled here is that the US has more Twitter users than any other country, which in a way one would expect. But there are roughly 73 million users in the US. Japan comes in at second place with over 55 million users, India at third with over 22 million users, and the UK at fourth with nearly 18 million users. But what's interesting about this, Kevin, is if we compare the number of Twitter users in each country to the total population of that country, Twitter really has a much greater market penetration in the tier 1 countries than in emerging developing countries like India, etc. And you would expect to see the inverse with the likes of the Facebooks and TikToks, because they'd have a much higher penetration in those less developed regions. And it's not equally true for the other social platforms, because, as I say, in India, Facebook has got substantially more users than in any other country. That source there from Statista. Point 5 is that 68.5% of Twitter users are male. This interested me quite a bit. And for some reason, Twitter reports much less even on gender distribution than any other social media network, and is clearly favored by men. And I don't know if that's just because it's got such a strong business and business account bias, which in many instances is the bias towards men in business as well. But for comparison, 49% of Instagram users are female, with 51% male. But here we're sitting with nearly 70% in Twitter being male. Source there is We Are Social.
Craig, I can probably suggest a reason why for that.
Share it, please.
Porn is easily available on Twitter, and it's readily available on Twitter, and you're allowed to kind of just go on. You can have a whole profile. I have a whole profile just on porn for sourcing porn. So that's probably why the male population is much higher. That could be making an assumption, but
that's a good
there
point.
Is some reasoning
I might have to go
believe.
investigate that. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. The good thing here on the basis of business, Kevin, is the 6th point that I pulled is that 79% of Twitter users actually follow brands, and that's really a great point. And I know, because the majority of the brands that I actually follow on Twitter, not on any other channel, definitely not on Facebook. So unlike Facebook, where most of the users only interact with their friends and family, as I said, most users, not all. Twitter really is the place that the users engage and interact with the brands they like. And yeah, the key point here is valuable audience equals influence, receptivity, and results. And obviously, Twitter's getting it right in that regard. And
But
the
isn't
source
that
there is the Twitter agency playbook. Sorry.
so? But isn't that the sort of play or the angle that Elon Musk is looking at? Because if you know that your audiences are more receptive to the brands, that way it can be completely monetized, and brands that are on Twitter could totally use that to their advantage, and Elon just wins at the end of the day. I think that's like a very good business decision.
I don't know why it hasn't happened yet, because the brands are still there, and there's fairly good leadership in Twitter at this particular point. But I don't really know enough around why the monetization aspect of Twitter has not gathered the momentum that it could or should gather. But the interesting thing is that the inverse might actually happen, because with one of the potential facets of Twitter coming along in terms of introduction of free speech, and I don't know where the moderation levels are going to be and what that moderation will result in terms of the biases of conversation and where the brands actually want to be associated with the platform that supports free speech, which could actually have a lot of negativity associated with it. So I will definitely be watching what happens in the space over the next few months to formulate an opinion that we can come back onto the show and talk about that, because there might actually be an inverse where brands start running away from the platform.
And what I think you should do is have like a monetized way of saying, okay, you can buy a profile for $20 a month or $10 a month with no ads, and just have people advertise on the platform. And I think a lot of people, it would be a great way to kind of see how it starts competing on, from that perspective.
Really intrigued to watch what happens. And it's not, decisions will happen instantaneously, but the lag effect of participation, joining in, leaning in more, or leaving the platform is a 3 to 6 month view line ahead. But I will definitely watch it carefully to be able to bring some opinion to the fore here. So 71% of Twitters get their news on the platform, which makes Twitter one of the most news-focused social platforms, Kevin, alongside Facebook, Reddit, and YouTube. So just to give you the stats there. So the 5 top social platforms in the USA is number 1, Facebook, 43% of usage, YouTube 21%, Twitter 12%, Instagram 8%, and LinkedIn 6%. But there's some interesting stats around LinkedIn around at 6% relative to the percentage of usage of Twitter. We'll do some deep dive into the LinkedIn platform. Point 8 of the 10 that I pulled here is 82% of B2B content users, at least content marketers, use Twitter. And as I mentioned earlier, in terms of the bias to men as well, I think a lot of that is around the fact that it's very much a business-based platform. And that's based on data from the Content Marketing Institute, and represents the number of marketers that use the platform for organic marketing over a 12-month period. Twitter ties with Facebook, which is also using 82%, which is also used by 82% of B2B markets. But the efficacy of the two channels is fundamentally different. And only LinkedIn was more popular, which was used by 96% of B2B marketers, source their Content Marketing Institute. And as I said, as much as the popularity getting news on the platform, LinkedIn was at 6% in terms of size against the others. The credibility makes LinkedIn a more popular platform. Point 9 is Twitter drives 40% greater ROI than other social channels. And again, I emphasize the point is that let's watch and see what happens here in the short to medium term, in the direction Twitter goes and how that impacts ROI. So ROI is often hard to calculate, especially when it comes to social media. However, according to the Twitter advertising playbook, Twitter is the clear winner when it comes to advertising ROI, driving 40% greater revenue than the other platforms. And the last point around Twitter, Kevin, is that is the top platform for brand interaction. And I think the ease and usability of the platform really is one of the aspects of the platform that make it defined itself as the top platform. And I see that with the brands that I engage with and interact with in terms of commentary, sharing, feedback, and things like that. So Twitter for Business notes that people spend 26% longer viewing ads on Twitter than on any other social platform. And I can vouch for that. According, again, to the Twitter agency Playbook report, Twitter is the #1 social media platform from consumer-based interaction. Yeah, and those are the top Twitter facts to remember at this point, Kevin, but definitely we need to watch to see where the platform goes and what happens.
Great. So you've mentioned before that whilst classified as social media channel, there's a significant difference between LinkedIn and the platforms that we've discussed. What can you share with us in relation to that statement?
Yeah, Kevin, I've referenced quite a bit around LinkedIn in these conversations. The article on businessinsider.com titled "LinkedIn is a social network that focuses on professional marketing and network career development" talks around how you can use LinkedIn to display your resume, search for jobs, enhance your professional reputation by posting updates, etc., and interacting with people. And that in itself is the fundamental difference between LinkedIn and the other platforms. And it's the fact that the professional industry is becoming more and more competitive, and LinkedIn offering the multitude of benefits that helps users or subscribers secure business leads and make new connections or even get a new job is one of the key drivers in differentiating the platform to the others. In the article, How to Run LinkedIn Ads in 2022, a definitive guide to advertising on LinkedIn, which was published by Sean, no surname provided in there, on the LinkedIn marketing blog, read that not long ago, many thought that LinkedIn was just another job site. But the way people are using LinkedIn today is fundamentally different. And if you go into your LinkedIn feed now, you barely see other posts about jobs. Many users are now using LinkedIn as a place to learn from leaders and industry experts and to improve their careers. And the article is a really deep article. So I've pulled a couple of statistics referenced in the article. So let's just go through those. So LinkedIn has 15 times more engagement on content posts than it does on jobs. So you can see how it's shifted from just that perception of being a job posting board to now really deep content environment. There are 9 billion content impressions a week with a 48% increase in engaged feed time, and that's substantial. More than 1,200 posts are shared per minute in LinkedIn. Wow. Yeah, a study by Millward Brown showed that LinkedIn users are 1.7 times more receptive to advertising, and that's why there's such stringent rules around LinkedIn advertising platform, because we can ensure that the right value of content is coming to the fore. And it's a platform that any advertiser would obviously be really wanting to advertise on. A study on LinkedIn users showed that users come to LinkedIn network to learn more from leaders, improve their careers, and search new opportunities. And this, unlike Facebook or Twitter, is where people go, obviously Facebook and Twitter, to be entertained. LinkedIn is more male than female users, and the audience is mostly millennials. There are 65 million decision makers on LinkedIn, with the 55% of these actually vetting the companies that they represent. The average person spends 7 minutes and 12 seconds per engagement on LinkedIn. 72% of full-time employees actually have a LinkedIn profile, Kevin. And LinkedIn is growing. Take note of this, it's more than 2 members per second worldwide. Although the member base is smaller than Facebook, there's definitely a huge difference in the mindset of the users. And definitely, as I mentioned earlier, and because of that, it's transformed from just being that jobbing board to actually an environment where it becomes a daily news destination as well. And it's worth mentioning here that it is the most trusted and brand safe platform out of any social media platform. And with all the fake news and abuse on Facebook and Instagram, etc., it certainly is the most important place for B2B engagement. And my last point on LinkedIn, Kevin, is that a study in Business Insider showed that users believe in LinkedIn content and ads are the least annoying. So yes, the place to go for ads and supply and demand, and therefore the higher price point for advertising in a LinkedIn environment as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Craig, as we're near the end of the show, what are the key takeaways and the key points that you can share with the listeners today?
Yeah, Kevin, I want to reference the article 2022 Social Media Industry Benchmarks. Know exactly where you stand in your market. And it was published on socialinsider.io by Eleanor Kuku on 24 February this year. And the article provides a great insight an overview of analyzing, take note, over 27 million posts on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok to establish what the average engagement rates are for the respective platforms, and then it compared it to industry specific data. So the top line findings from the article are the following. TikTok is the most engaging social media platform at the moment, with an average engagement of 5.96%. FMCG food is the most engaging industry on TikTok, interestingly, with engagement of 15.82%, with the beverages at 12.79%, and take note of this, jewelry at 11.12%. In 2021, Kevin, TikTok's average engagement increased by 14.26%. And as you know, video content is the future of social media marketing, and TikTok really has brought that to the fore. Moving to Instagram, Instagram scored an average engagement rate of only 0.83%. The most engaging industry on Instagram, interestingly, is travel, with an average engagement rate of 1.41%. NGOs is coming in at second at 1.39%, and then food at 1.12%. And most brands still have an image-focused content strategy on Instagram. And I suppose with that in mind, you can understand why travel then is the top priority in the space. Moving to Facebook, as mentioned earlier, the engagement rate was 0.13%. The most engaging industry on Facebook, as it is with TikTok, interestingly, is FMCG food, with an average engagement rate of 0.47%, beverages coming in next at 0.42%, and then automotive coming in at 0.27%. And there's not a single industry without any drops in engagement in Facebook, Kevin, in 2021. As I mentioned, huge decline in organic participation in the platform. But another great point here is that photographs actually make up for about 70% of all of the content posted on Facebook. Facebook and Instagram both experiencing that organic drop. And then Twitter is second on average engagement with a 0.05% engagement rate. And this, again, jewelry, I found this quite interesting, is the most engaging industry on Twitter, Kevin, with an average engagement rate of 0.18%. But again, FMCG food coming in next at 0.12%, and beverages. So we're seeing across all the platforms, jewelry, food, and beverages really having a key role in participation on those platforms. And the jewelry sector is the only one that succeeds in doubling its Twitter engagement rate over 2021. Again, it just astounds me. And Twitter is the social platform with the most diversified content. And based on what's already been said around where Twitter could be going, watch this space, because I think there'll be a lot more diversification of the kind of content on the platform. And those are the key takeaway points from the conversation today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Craig. I just listening to all of this, it's been quite the eye opener. And also like reconsidering where to advertise and how to use sort of the advertising platforms a little bit more strategically. So yes. I'm also going to be checking out Twitter and seeing, like what's going to happen and how that's going to be changing, because I'm sure it's going to be changing. There's a reason why he went and bought it.
Yeah, there definitely is. We'll find out what it is soon.
So, Craig, what are we going to be covering on the topic of bias? Is it bias that we're going to be chatting about next week?
Yes, Kevin, a topic you know all too well,
Yes.
It's something that really you cover extensively in your leadership and development coaching. But as an intro for our listeners, I just want to provide a quick definition of what bias is. So referencing simply just Wikipedia, bias is a disproportionate weight in favor of or against an idea or thing. And it's usually in a way that is closed-minded, prejudicial, or unfair. And biases can actually be innate or learned. And people may develop biases for or against an individual or a group or a belief in science, engineering, and a bias is a systematic error. And just the nature of the freedom of speech aspect of Twitter, I think, comes around very much around some of the biases that have presented themselves on the platform as well. So yeah, interesting point to watch, but yeah, that's a teaser for the conversation next week.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because just knowing, and all the research that I've done around biases, half the time we don't even know that we're being biased. It's
Yes.
You're subconsciously actually just making the statement or going about sharing your opinion, and you don't even know why you've done that. But there's a very specific reason which we'll share. But yeah, looking forward to that. Guys, you can catch the Lunchtime and the Marketing, Lunchtime and Leadership series with Kevin and Craig, where we add value to people's lives every Thursday on eBiz Radio at 12. Craig, thank you for joining me, and thanks for today's discussion.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Yeah, and enjoy the rest of your time in Europe. Look forward to hearing more about it. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks.
Chat to you next week. Cheers for now.
Yeah,
Bye.
absolute. Bye.